All right. Good morning, everybody. Yeah. Are we ready? Yeah. Okay. So my name is Adrian Ferrero. I'm co-founder and CEO of Biomakers.
And I'm Dan McLean. I'm here on behalf of AgriFresh. I'm a global R&D leader for new business development.
So what we are going to do is to present the actions that we have been fulfilling in the last months together, pilot actions. But before that, let's have a quick view on who we are.
So AgriFresh, and I think one of our early demo days, we started off with the what if kind of question. So we like to start off a lot of these partnerships by asking what are those what ifs. And in this particular case, we asked, what if we could develop some sort of insight, some sort of tool to help detect these decay-causing organisms throughout the supply chain, and even starting pre-harvest, and just provide that insight to see if there's a correlation with storage quality, shipping quality, any sort of aspect of quality. So that kind of led us to our work with Adrian and Biomaker.
And we define ourselves as a smart microbial discovery company. We have developed a technology that is able to identify, to quantify, and to understand the impact of the microbial community in agriculture. We have been opening this information, this knowledge for farmers, for growers, for all the stakeholders, because this is important for us. Microbes impact the plants, the way we grow the plants, but microbes also impact us, not just in negative way, but also in positive way. And we started working in wine. That's the first vertical that we released last year. We started commercializing it to learn how to bring value. And now we decided that it was the moment to start replicating that in other crops and bring value by understanding the impact of the microbes to different crops. And that's the main reason because we decided to join Terra Accelerator and start working with different corporates.
Yeah. So exactly. For those of you who know AgriFresh, we have a fairly significant presence in Apple, and that was clearly one of the verticals that Biomakers had expressed an interest in developing a little bit further. And so we set out to, as the goal states there, try to determine a correlation of the microorganisms present pre-harvest on the fruit with some sort of attribute post-harvest. So storage quality, production practices, diseases that may be present on the fruit. And so we partake on this goal.
Yeah, so with this goal in mind, we start thinking how we can coordinate each other and design the perfect pilot action that we launched in October last year. First, defining different actions, we call them different trials, okay, and then, sampling based on those trials, on the actions defined, and then receiving the samples in our well lab here in San Francisco, processing the samples through our DNA sequencing workflow, and then using our intelligence machine learning system to understand and to identify those microbial patterns to bring value. And that was what we did, at the end of last month, at the beginning. The three actions, the three trials that we are going to now show you, because everything has been done in time record, which is great, so we already have the results, are the fire blight health. We also compare organic versus conventional, and also pre-harvest through the storage. So what is happening?
Yeah. Just one additional comment on that is, just the way that the Terra lined up with the production season in the Northern Hemisphere here. This is really just we looked through our collection of tissue that we already had in storage for other purposes, and we just said, well, these are some interesting contrasts that we could use to just to understand more of the technology, but this is from AgriFresh's perspective just a way of getting familiar with the technology and use it as a stepping stone to kind of a more comprehensive and more properly designed experiment going into our next season, which is starting very, very soon. So it's really nice timing in that regard. Yeah. Sorry, the first one here was on fire blight. And this was actually an interesting, unexpected result in some respects. we had some tissue where there was clearly some fire blight, but we only collected the fruit tissue and not necessarily the leaves and the stem tissue, which is where fire blight really expresses itself. But we happen to have some fruit from those limbs, from healthy and unhealthy. And the short story is that we actually didn't see a lot of the Erwinia pathogen on the apple fruit tissue. And I'm not sure that's really commonly known in the literature at this point, but it's something we may follow up on a little bit more in understanding how fire blight as a vector, how it moves through the phloem and xylem inside the fruit, the apple trees and stuff like that.
So that was one of the results from the trial. Another trial that we wanted to explore is there any difference on the microbiome profile based on the farming practices? So that was the question. We did the microbiome testing, and then we asked our virtual machine, hey, is there any difference? And the reality is that there are differences. It doesn't mean that organic or conventional is better or worse. There are differences. What we saw is that the biodiversity in organic farming is higher versus conventional, but at the same time, the microbial risk linked to the fruit are lower in conventional versus organic. So understanding these kind of patterns will allow us to better produce or sell fruit and food that is more safety and better for our health.
Excellent, yeah. And then the final pilot that we explored together was kind of taking a continuum of tissue from pre-harvest, at harvest, post-antimicrobial preservative, and then through to 6 weeks or so of controlled atmosphere storage. And then again, understanding how the microbiome on that fruit surface changes in response to those various treatments or storage conditions. And then eventually, we can correlate that with the presence of decay organisms or other kind of food safety issues that may be present over time or develop over time. So clearly this is a stepping stone to a much more comprehensive study.
Yeah, and this is also very interesting because what is happening after the harvest to keep the fruit fresher, more time, longer time, by using more effective products and so on. That's very interesting, isn't it?
Exactly. So it's a way of characterizing the new antimicrobials, new organic alternatives, or different atmosphere modifications, all these types of kind of new technologies, how they actually impact the microorganisms that we're trying to control and manage. And then we only use 6 weeks of time just because of the compressed timeline, but the real value might be gained as you push out the season, the storage season significantly. That's when the fruit gets weaker and more decay and more losses are associated with time and decay.
So those were the 3 trials that we developed during the pilot activities. And what's next? So the idea is to keep exploring opportunities to increase our knowledge on which kind of patterns we can identify, and hopefully by identifying those microbial patterns we'll be able to deliver new solutions that will bring value for consumers and for the industry as well. We also plan to leverage the global footprint by understanding if the same patterns happen to other crops, to other markets. So the same solution can be sold to more wider markets. And finally, how to jointly commercialize this kind of solutions. That's very interesting for both of us.
Absolutely, and we focused on apple in this particular study, but we have some ambitions and goals, I guess, of expanding into citrus and pears and other kind of high value crops that have a similar type of use pattern, I guess.
Exactly, and it matches perfectly with the strategy that we have as a startup, because starting in the wine vertical, that means a permanent crop, so the natural expansion of the technologies to other permanent crops where if you have a problem, the problem is very painful because you have to replant, or even the production is going to be very low, and from the economic basis, it's going to be important.
Yep. So, just a concluding step, and our next step is right now we're just getting into the harvest season, the bloom season, for the 2018 harvest, and so getting a nice season-long trial that we can extend all the way through to the storage and the period and all the way through to marketing next year is something that we would love to work on together. So yeah, thank you.
So finally, just thanks Terra for this opportunity to work together, and we hope to see so many cases like this one in the future. Thanks.